Well, hello again, without any banners across or whatever, but welcome to this reading of one of my many articles that I've written in my time, of course, on spiritualism and related matters. And this one I wrote a couple of years ago, and it's something that has always been around within spiritualism ever since the beginning of it, which is why it's headed, Spiritualism's exponents need to be able to sustain their worldly needs and can come from all creeds and cultures, and take a look at its history. Well, yes, there's always been debate about mediums charging for their services. And some people would say, well, it's a time that one takes to train. We're talking about people who develop their abilities within a church circle or home circle, study the subject, become adept over a period of years, and during which time, just the same as in any other field of study, they'll have taken time out from other things in their lives to do that. So I decided a couple of years ago that I would write an article on the subject. So here it is. Now, yes, this was published first in the Psychic World newspaper, which is a monthly, and I'm their page 3 girl. And the details of subscribing to that, if you're not able to buy it at your church or Spiritualist Centre, on their Facebook page, which is Psychic World newspaper. Now, spiritualism is a religious belief system and spiritual movement with millions of followers worldwide without a paid clergy. It's a system that grew organically out of a revelation, just like other religions before it, but it was not started by some enlightened being given to a man sitting in contemplation on a rock in a desert. Oh, some enlightenment being given, not an enlightened being. There's another thing, in spiritualist practice, which is called bad reading, and it's about picking up a passage and just sort of reading it without reading it, so that you get another message from that. And I think I've just demonstrated that. Now we'll start again. It's a system that grew organically out of a revelation, just like other religions before it, but it was not started by some enlightenment being given to a man sitting in contemplation on a rock in the desert, or divinely inspired wisdom given to a man on a high mountain in some exotic location, but through an extraordinary disruptive noise that disturbed a family group of Christian women in a humble cottage in upstate New York in America. This was a move that could conceivably be argued as giving inherent proof that someone could be of any of the old revealed religions' adherents, including any denomination of Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, yet still be a follower of what came to be named as spiritualism, and that women could indeed be public speakers and ministers espousing and expounding spiritual truths. The fact in the case of the Fox sisters and their mother being prompted to find a method by which they made contact with an intelligent, discarnate individual who was to all intents and purposes dead are well documented. And their subsequent adventures as mediums, moving to the big city and a more comfortable lifestyle, and the rise of many who developed their own potentiality for mediumship between this world and the next, has been written up in many a publication, both spiritualist and otherwise. Churches and meeting places were established thereafter, and a charter was granted spiritualism as a recognized religion in the United States of America where church and state are separate, unlike the United Kingdom. Here, the monarch is also head of the Church of England, and other faiths are allowed to operate by let and favour. However, it's known that the Church of England has always harboured convinced spiritualists in its congregations and in its clergy too. There have been some very famous spiritualists in the Anglican Communion over modern spiritualism's now 172 years of existence, like the writer of the spiritualist hymn Gracious Spirit, Mabel St. Clair Stobart, who had bishops as friends, and who never stopped trying to get her Orthodox COB to openly embrace spiritualism. And Miss St. Clair Stobart was also independently wealthy. Born on February the 3rd, 1862, she became a campaigner for women's rights and right to vote as a suffragist and aid worker. She created and commanded all-women medical units to serve in the Balkan Wars and the First World War, and became the first woman major in any national army. She was also the author of several books and articles, including Psychic Bible Stories for Young and Old, and The Either-Or of Spiritualism. This spiritualist stalwart passed over on December the 7th, 1954, having lived to see the publication of the report to the archbishops on spiritualism and the introduction of the Pre-Fraudulent Mediums Act of 1951, replacing the old Witchcraft Act. Or the Reverend Vale Owen, who was Vicar of Oxford, Warrington, where he created a new church, Orford. There I go again with the bad writing. Reverend Vale Owen was Vicar of Orford, Warrington, where he created a new church which was built in 1908 and worked there until 1922. He began to receive communication from spirit in 1913, receiving messages via automatic writing performed without conscious thought or deliberation. During the 1920s, he authored many books about spiritualism, his most notable being the 5-volume set Life Beyond the Veil. The works were prefaced by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Lord Northcliffe, the Daily Mail proprietor, published summaries of the works of Owen in his journal, The Weekly Dispatch. He said that he was impressed by the great sincerity and unshakable conviction of Owen, and that he clearly possessed great spiritual gifts. The church authorities forced him out of his parish, but he then found a spiritual home with Wimbledon Spiritualist Church that was founded by a fellow Christian spiritualist, Richard Arthur Bush, and was invited to formally open the new building on December the 16th, 1925. On Wednesday, December the 17th, 1913, the Wimbledon Spiritualist Mission had begun its journey at a public meeting in a hired room in Islewin Road. Now, Reverend Joe Islewin Roberts, the former vicar of Llandudno and a Bangor Cathedral minor canon, who passed the spirit in January 2018 at the age of 99, wrote the famous book Holy Ghostbuster in 1996 that I publicised for him in Psychic News while I was editor. And this is a December-January issue of Psychic World, No Coincidence in Spiritualism. Now, of course, here I am speaking to you in December of 2020. However, the Reverend's material resources became severely depleted. In other words, he went skint. To help him, Conan Doyle organised a trust fund that provided financial support for Vale Owen during the rest of his life. Since Reverend Vale Owen passed over in 1933, hundreds of workers for spirit have had to look to negotiating payment in exchange for their gifts to help keep body and soul together on the earth plane. And many an argument has raged over whether mediums should charge for their services. But I believe that every genuine medium is also a minister. Every inspired address or sermon given is also an act of spiritualist ministry. And in the absence of central funding source dispensing a salary to its ministers, spiritualist workers are entitled to ask a fee for their engagements, either demonstrating on a public platform or in a private consultation. Of course, some make their living in other ways, and don't need to worry about subsistence, although there may not be many as wealthy as Miss Sinclair Stobart, or have patrons like Sir Arthur. But whether they are, as the aforementioned people were, Christian, or of any other religion, and want to continue their adherence to their basic religions, if they are spiritualists and are spreading our knowledge that there is life after this life for all, and need to request material support to allow them to do that, then so be it. There. And I've also put on the end of this, of course, because it was published in the newspaper, for more articles by Rev Lyn, www.newchristianspiritualistsociety.com and www.lingestiswalk.com, and the Spiritualist Handbook available at amazon.com. There. Well, I hope that sort of clears up a few points for you. It is an ongoing debate, it always is. And, you know, a lot of squabbles go on about how much people should be expected to pay and how much can people charge. And I suppose it moves into the realms of fantasy when you get so-called celebrity mediums who charge hundreds of pounds for a sitting. And in fact, the person, the inquirer, the sitter, will get no better or worse than they would get from somebody who's sort of a jobbing medium doing work for their church, and getting sort of £5 or £10 a time for their work. But you know, again, it's all about perception and what one is pleased to do, and very often one sees a situation where if people are very obviously strapped for financial resources, you know, if they haven't got very much money to spare for such a thing as a consultation with a medium, then very often they're given a free reading or just a little donation, whatever they can manage, perhaps, just to help the medium out if the medium is also strapped. But in the ordinary course of events, I think that people are quite happy to sort of give a little money to a medium for doing the work that they do. And as I'm always saying, you know, the organised religions of the world pay their clergy. They have regular salaries, stipends, and honorariums, and they manage very well because the believers pay in, or they give tithes, and make sure that their church functions in such a way that they can afford to do that. And of course, in spiritualism, this isn't the way of it. I suppose being so very little, very not materialistic at all, it's been very difficult to talk about, you know, financing the churches and organisations. But the fact is that, you know, a one-time president of the Spiritualist National Union and principal of the Arthur Findlay College, wonderful medium as well, speaker, teacher, Gordon Higginson, set up a special fund where, you know, people could invest literally in spiritualism by paying into this fund, and it was a sort of a capital amount that accrued interest and was used to fund spiritualist projects. And so there you are. You see that there's always been that. Shall we call it a stumbling block in the way of wanting to be a spiritual movement, but also needing to keep, as I mentioned, body and soul together, and to have buildings perhaps for worship, and again, ministers and mediums, speakers who need to be able to eat and drink and have shelter over themselves as well, and all the basics of life. And because we don't have an organisation that can pay mediums and ministers and speakers, they need to be able to say to individuals, we need some pennies to keep going. Thank you. So I'm in support of that, as you heard from that article. I hope that you've enjoyed today. I'll say hello to everybody. There you are. I have to look away now. Yes, Julie, Suzanne, hello, Sarah, Reverend Sarah. We get hi again. Hello, everybody. Oh, Tim Abbott. I'll put you up, Tim. There, in the book How to Be a Medium by W.H. Evans, there's a wonderful phrase: if you worship the altar, you should be kept by the altar. As I say, many religious people are paid a wage for their spiritual services, so why not a medium? But of course, the fact is that worship the altar, you should be kept by the altar. Yes, one understands that, although it could be misunderstood, couldn't it, as a poke at materialism. But the fact is that we certainly should have something. I mean, if we can't have a wage, at least we can ask the people who consult us if they would like to cross our palms with silver. That was the old one, wasn't it? But in the old days, the monasteries, and doesn't say much so much about the convents, but certainly in the monasteries, a lot of them were kept going by the fact that sinners would want them to, the holy men, to pray for them, to make sure that they got to heaven. Because of course, if you start threatening people that they can't go to heaven if they're naughty, they need to find a way through that, especially if they're going to continue to be naughty. And the best thing to do, it was found, was to sort of employ, in cricket, if you get injured at the crease when you're batting, you can have a runner, so somebody can make the runs for you. And in a way, I could see that as naughty people being stuck in the rut and needing people to actually make their runs for them to God and back. And you not minding paying for that privilege. So the monks got quite rich on that too. Perhaps our spiritualists have been doing it wrong. Perhaps we should take a leaf out of their book and say, well, if you need to get to heaven, but no. But the fact is that there's always been a situation where those who have devoted their life to interceding, if you like, between this world and the next, have been given an amount to keep themselves going in the process. So there you are. And indeed, if you look around at all the various religious setups that there are, you will see that even those that are doing outreach are always asking for help or for funds to be paid in. And of course, in the Bible, they talk about tithes, giving the first fruits and so on of the harvest to God, basically. Then and they take from that everybody should pay 10%, say, of their income to their church, or give. And spiritualism, of course, is outside of that. We're not into that. But we do say that it's nice if people do feel that mediums and speakers and our movement, basically, and those who move that movement, are given something for their troubles. And there we are. So thank you, Tim, for that. And it's sort of telling me all sorts of other things here. Well, I hope that you found that interesting. And it's still Sunday morning here on the 13th of December 2020. And we're still in a situation where lots of people in the world are feeling the strain of living under the threat of catching this terrible virus that's around at the time now. But we have just had news of a vaccination that's possible to help people avoid the worst of that. And I believe that many people have felt stressed and worried at this time, more than usual. And I would only suggest that, you know, when all said and done, what we do as spiritualists is we pray, and we know that our prayers are answered. We know that we're heard by our guides and helpers over there on the other side of life, that they do everything they can to help us, that they can give us comfort and help. Just wonderful. I mean, this morning, for instance, I was reading another article, and the dogs were quiet, and I finished the article, and just at that moment, as I turned it off, where it says end broadcast, and you click it off, they started barking the house down. Somebody had suddenly arrived. How did they know that? Them upstairs, because I was warbling on as usual, and yet nothing at all happened to disturb that silence around me until I actually clicked to go offline, and then that was it. So even little things like that, I think they're big things. To me, that proves that those we love listen to us and hear what's going on and can help us too. So I'm sure that you're being helped, whatever you're going through at the moment. Just send up a thought. If you have a loved one on the other side of life, send a thought to them. Tell them what you're going through, just as if you would, or even if you wouldn't have done while they were down here, you can now, because people get a greater understanding when they're in the realms of light. That's for sure. Even though when they come back to us, they come back to identify themselves, so they very much in the characteristics they were. But nevertheless, I can assure you that when our loved ones go to that next stage in their life, they become more enlightened, and more enlightened beings. Remember that one that I got wrong the first time, and that they're able to actually intercede on our behalf and go and get help for us when we need it. So there you are. I hope you feel cheered, feel a bit comforted, and if you are a working medium, healer and speaker, that you won't feel bad about asking for some remuneration for the work that you do, for all the studying that you've done, for the development work. And just because we all need to live here on this physical plane of life, and for that we need certain things. And if we don't have very much, we really should say to people, we could do with a little bit of help here. Thank you very much. We'll help you spiritually, you help us materially. There. So I'll say God bless you on this wonderful Sunday morning. It's really nice to have heard from you, Tim. And I see you've got lots of, wow, of course, DSNU, I would expect, and the other letters as well. Wow, well done for that. And, we all overcome difficulties in our life. And I think Tim Abbott is a shining example of that. And I won't tell you any more than that, but that's what I think. So well done, Tim, for overcoming those difficulties in your life and getting where you are now. And very, very nice to be able to hear from you today. So I'll say God bless again. And I hope you'll join me again when I next broadcast. Says she, looking for the thing that says end broadcast.